Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the PS We Expire podcast. This is episode number 3, and I want to talk about just the most fun thing ever, anxiety. I highly suspect that most people have had a little taste of anxiety in their lives, regardless of how positive and wonderful their lives have been. I have had surprising amounts of anxiety pop up in my life when I felt like I was doing just fine. And so over the last several years, as I have really addressed my health as holistically, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, all of those parts of myself that have needed attention, it came as a result of having anxiety kind of as the catalyst for some significant change in my life. So I want to share with you today my experience with anxiety, what I have used, 5 really helpful tools that I have used to address anxiety and stress in my life. I know that everybody can utilize these things. And not so much as as a way to say, hey, if you do these things, this is going to fix this quote unquote problem in your life. It's not about that. It's about how do we address our needs as a layered, complex person in a way that helps us show up in our lives the way that we want to. So this is what I'm sharing with you today, and I hope that you find these things to be very helpful. Maybe the tools aren't even something that you feel like is going to help you, but if nothing else, I want you to know that you are not alone. So I'm sharing with you my experience with anxiety in an attempt to help you feel like you are heard, that you are understood, that you are seen, that somebody else understands what it's like to deal with these things, and maybe also take away some practical tips on how to help you manage that in your own life. So I'm so grateful that you're here, and I hope that this episode is helpful to you. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of the PS We Expire podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Motsinger, and today I want to talk to you about anxiety. Okay, I am a perpetual optimist. And so when I had an anxiety attack for the first time, I was like, what the hell, man? Like, I'm super happy. I look on the bright side of things. I'm always thinking about the best case scenario. And I thought that was going to keep anxiety far from me. And that was not the case. I remember the first time that happened, I was watching a movie, totally simple movie. It was not, like a high stress movie with a lot of intensity or a lot of suspense or anything like that. It was a very, very chill movie. And I'm trying to remember even what it felt like for that. I think it was like my heart started racing and I was like, well, this is weird. And everything started to constrict. And then I was feeling, it felt like, such a weird way to try and describe this, but it felt like the blood was draining from my feet and my hands and everything was pulling inward. And then my vision started to do this and to close in. And I started to have swirly thoughts that I could not get a hold of. And I was pretty sure I was going to die. I didn't know what was going on. I'd never had anything like this happen to me before. And I laid on the floor and put my legs up on a chair. And my husband, Ryan, was like, do I need to take you in? Do I need to call an ambulance? And I was like, maybe. I don't know. I was so worried about what was going to happen to me. I thought something was seriously wrong with me. He called his mom to come over to be with the kids. I mean, this was like in the middle of the night. This was really late at night. He called his mom to come over and be with the kids so he could take me in if he needed to. And I was able, it was probably 45 minutes to an hour before I started to feel like, oh, okay, I'm all right. Like nothing seriously wrong is happening. But that was my first taste of these feelings that I had, or what it felt like in my body when I had ignored and neglected my emotions for too long. It was, I had a lot of stress in my life between caring for my daughter with special needs and my other 2 children, and starting a business and just a lot of really difficult things. And I thought I was handling it, but really what I was doing was running. I was running away from how I really felt about things, and I wasn't being honest with myself. I wasn't being honest with other people about how hard things were and how I couldn't do it on my own. So that was my first taste of anxiety. I had a handful of anxiety attacks after that. It's not fun when they happen when I'm driving. I went to the ER one time for it, partly because I thought, well, if there is something going on with my heart or something like that, I really want to know what it is. And this was a turning point for me in developing self-care habits. I know that's kind of a trendy word. It's a little bit, everybody's saying self-love and self-care, and you're like, what does that even mean, and how can that even fit into my life? I'm so busy. I have kids, I'm in school, I have parents I have to take care of. There's too many things to do. I have too much to do to even think about like having a spa day or something like that. So not only do I want to clarify what self-care is, but I also want to tell you the things that have helped me tremendously. So going back to sitting in the ER super late at night after having another panic attack, and the doctor asked me, well, we could do all these tests, but I think they're going to come back not showing anything. Do you have any stress in your life? And I kind of laughed and I said, yeah, I do. I mean, I've got a daughter with a terminal diagnosis, and that'll probably do it, And he said, well, I can give you some medication to help with anxiety. I can give that to you right now. And in that moment, I thought, I know that if I need this medication, that may be a very, very helpful tool for me. However, he didn't ask me really anything else about what was happening in my life. He didn't ask about the support that I had. He didn't offer up any alternative things. He didn't ask me questions about some of the things that I know now help tremendously with my anxiety. He didn't ask any of those questions. He just offered this as a solution. And then I realized, I had heard for years some things that you can do to help with stress and anxiety. And I had never done those things consistently, like ever. And so I decided, before I take medication, which I am not opposed to at all, but before I do that, there are 4 things that I'm going to try before I do that. Now, there's a 5th thing on my list now that I do consistently that helps tremendously. But at that time I thought, okay, there's 4 things. Now, the 4 things were exercise, nutrition, therapy, and cutting out caffeine. So I guess cutting out caffeine kind of hits in the nutrition a little bit, but I decided I'm going to go all in on trying these things first. So over the next several years, I developed some habits to incorporate those into my life. Now, the 5th thing is having a meditation practice. Oh my goodness. I cannot even tell you how much these 5 things have seriously improved my life. Not only have they reduced my anxiety considerably. I mean, I think I've only had a couple of times where I've felt that revving up, and I've been able to break that cycle, break that pattern, and come out of it before it goes into a full-blown anxiety attack. But my stress, my sleep, my relationships have all drastically improved as a result of incorporating these things into my life. So number 1, exercise. I like saying movement instead of exercise, maybe because, there can be negative connotations with the word exercise because of how it has been part of like diet culture, and I don't like that. However, I will say exercise because for me that's what made a difference, because exercise is something that is for me, habitual, something that I'm committing to doing. So I had tried running for years and I thought that I was a bad person because I didn't like running. Like I attached there was something faulty with me because I didn't really care to run. I love walking. Walking is great. It turns out that's actually also very, very good for you. I didn't really like the cardio that was like, do these movements and it's like barking in your face and you have to move constantly and you just feel like puking your guts out all the time. Like I knew that if I was going to do an exercise routine that I felt like puking every time I went, that there was no way that I was going to keep it up. So I remember going to my very first yoga class and it was not easy. I was pretty inflexible. Also, wasn't like wildly out of shape, but it was hard. It was hard for me to do this hour-long yoga class. And I also had never done yoga before. And at the end of the class, we were sitting there quietly and tears just running down my cheeks. And it was the first time in a long time probably that I had felt so connected to my body. I had been so disconnected from my body. And part of the problem of being disconnected from our bodies is that we neglect our emotions. We don't allow ourselves to feel whatever we're feeling in the situation. And that was part of what contributed to my anxiety, is that I wouldn't slow down long enough to let myself actually feel what things felt like in my body, especially emotions that I had learned through, my family of origin, through the religious framework that I belong to, the religious system I belong to, through, I think, just societal norms, particularly for women, that I learned that particular emotions were not okay for me to have, which is total BS. But that's what I learned. I thought that having things like anger was really destructive. I would try and scramble out of those feelings as quickly as possible. I thought grief, to a certain extent, really wasn't okay either. Part of that was because the belief system that I had at the time was very directed on an eternity that was perfect. And what that did, I mean, a lot of times that did bring me a lot of comfort, but also what that did is that made me feel bad about having sad feelings about what was happening now. It was like, if you know that things ahead are going to be good, then just focus on that. And I would say that even outside of any kind of religious framework, anytime you have a message that says that being positive is the best way to be and the only right way to be, high vibes, good vibes only, you're going to end up having problems when difficulties come into your life and you don't feel like you're allowed to feel those things. So yoga helped connect me to my body in a new way. And I also discovered that part of the appeal of yoga to me was how slow and thoughtful it was, how much attention I had to pay to my body as I was doing these exercises. So when I was doing these other frantic kind of cardio exercises, I didn't feel like my brain got a break. And then I discovered weightlifting. Like the skies parted and it was like, oh, this is it. This is it for me. I love weightlifting, partly because of the very same thing that I got in yoga, the brain-body connection. I get to pay attention to how I'm feeling. I get to notice when I'm on the edge of something and pay attention to that internal dialogue that says, this is too hard, you can't do this. And I say, yes, I can, and do one more, So exercise, hands down, one of the best things. And I have exercised 4 or 5 times a week for a year and a half, just over a year and a half. significant improvement. So what I'm going to suggest to you is don't do the things that I'm doing necessarily. I mean, give them a try if that sounds like something that you would like, but find something for you that works. Might be yoga, might be Pilates, might be kickboxing, might be skiing, might be rowing, might be running. You weirdo. Just kidding. I wish I liked running. Anyway, find something for you that makes you feel connected to your body and pushes you out of your comfort zone, and something that you can do long term. Something that you're not going to, injure yourself right out of the gate or make you feel pukey every single time, or you're never going to want to do it again. So find something that feels uncomfortable enough that pushes you, but not so uncomfortable that you're not ever going to do it again. Exercise. The second one, good nutrition. Okay, I have tried. Okay, so partly because whatever this actually says, I'm a 5 on the Enneagram, which means that I am like an information sponge. I'm like, I will read all the things. I will search all the things. I will get more information about all of this to try. I'm a big tester. I'm a tester of ideas, and I'm a tester of programs and systems and habits. And so I've done all of the different kind of nutrition plans. I've done keto, I've done vegetarian, I've done the Whole30, I've done all the things. And it was very important for me to pay attention to how my body feels based on what I'm eating. And that changes over time also. And that varies from person to person. And that's why I can't stand it when people say, this is the way that everybody should eat. No, it's not. No, it's not. You happen to find something that works really well for you. But this is exactly what is important in the exercise routine, is very important in your nutritional habits, is to pay attention to your body. Because your body is going to tell you how it's responding and reacting to the things that you're eating. So for me, I try and limit my dairy intake. And probably the thing that I go through large periods of not eating the most are gluten. So, flour products. That has helped so much. It just helps me. It helps my body feel better. And I have really come to honor the mind-body connection so much, because I want to live a life that is in service of my mental effort. Because I know that whatever is happening up here in my mind, is going to influence everything else in my life. And nutrition has been something that has enabled me to have good nutrition, I should say. Paying attention to that has enabled me to have much more clear-mindedness. And that has only come through trial and error. So finding the things that help me not only feel the best in my body, because if we're not feeling well in our physical bodies, if we have a lot of inflammation, if we have, if we're bloated, if we have gas, if we, have diarrhea, whatever, those things are not going to enable us to think clearly about our current circumstances or plan well in our future. Because when you don't feel good, our mental energy is tied up in that. It's like when you stub your toe. And every time you walk, your toe just throbs. And it's so difficult to concentrate on anything else than your hurt toe. So if your body doesn't feel good, you have a big portion of your focus that is tied up in how uncomfortable or how much pain you feel. So the more things that we can do in service of our minds, the better. Good nutrition, big one for me. Cutting out caffeine. This was a game changer for me. And once I eliminated caffeine from my diet, mostly through coffee, my anxiety was like, pew! It reduced so much. And then if I tried to reintroduce caffeine, I can have it in small amounts now. But if I try to have a cup of regular caffeinated coffee, the anxiety shows up really quickly. And the jittery feeling, I don't like that. That also feels kind of like anxiety to me, the jitteriness in my body. I don't like it. It doesn't help me focus. It just doesn't feel good. I feel nauseated. Anyway, caffeine is a huge one. And maybe you don't get those same kind of body reactions to caffeine. However, if you find yourself being very stressed, you have a difficult time managing the thoughts, maybe they keep running, and you have a difficult time slowing them down to pay attention to what you're actually thinking about, just try it. Try eliminating caffeine and see if that helps. The fourth one is counseling. I think everybody should go to therapy. I don't care how great your life is. Therapy is amazing. Thankfully, the stigma around going to therapy, I think, has shifted. So it's not quite so, I wouldn't even say taboo, but not reserved for people who have significant mental challenges, mental or emotional challenges. The work that I've been able to do with a therapist, I've done in-person therapy, I've done virtual therapy, I've done phone call therapy, and then I've also had a smattering of coaches, business and life coaches over the years. And what I have found is how wonderful it is to have someone who is not so close to your circumstances that can give you more objective feedback, and they don't have a dog in the fight, so you could talk to them about things happening in your relationships or ways that you're really struggling in your business or parenting. Oh my God, parenting, the struggles that you have in parenting. And they don't have a vested interest in anything other than helping you be able to manage your mental and emotional well-being. They don't, they're not impacted day in and day out like a close friend or a spouse or a family member is. So they can give you, not only can they give you feedback, but they also have a big toolbox full of tools to help you that you maybe have never heard of before. I absolutely love therapy and coaching. What I have found, and maybe this is just the type of therapists and coaches that I've worked with, but the difference that I have found in the people that I have talked with is that in counseling, it was a lot of talk therapy. So I talked a lot. I spent a good portion of my sessions with them crying, which is unusual for me. I mean, I have close friends that barely ever see me cry. And I'm working through that myself to figure out, what kind of coping strategies I have around that and why I don't open myself up too much and make myself too vulnerable to the people who are even closest to me. It's getting better. Anyway, but what I really wanted was, in addition to that, was someone who gave me homework. So I wanted somebody to say, I want you to work on these things and, we'll come back next week or in 2 weeks and talk about how it's going. So a combination of counseling and coaching has been very, very helpful to me. And I have done it not consistently, but I have done it when I've needed it. Right. So we've got exercise, good nutrition, cutting out caffeine, counseling, therapy, coaching. And then the last one is meditation. I used to think that meditation was, I guess I don't know what I thought it was. Because I was part of a very conservative religious system for a long time, meditation was dangerous, I guess, because it was more of had an Eastern flavor to it. And it wasn't really until I exited that belief system and started to find other tools to help me that I discovered meditation for myself and really started to do it on a regular basis. So meditation, the kind that I like anyway, I do some guided, some is just breath. But what meditation has done for me has helped me slow down, helped me get back in touch with my body, helped me uncover some of the narrative that my subconscious mind was running in the background all the time. And to finally notice that, have that come to my awareness, my conscious awareness, and decide what I want to do with that and help me understand what things I actually needed to work on. Because sometimes you are so close to a problem, or not even a problem necessarily, but so close to a pattern or behavior in your own life. I mean, if you can only hear me, I've got my hand right in front of my face. You're so close to it that you cannot see any other way to think about that. You can't see any other behavior, or you can't even notice that you're doing it. So what meditation has done for me is it has helped me zoom out and notice patterns of behavior in my life, and has helped uncover some of that story that's running in the background all the time, and helped me to consciously address those things. So meditation, I would say like 5 to 7 days a week. I wake up in the morning and I don't even get out of bed. I pop my headphones in and I either do a guided meditation or I turn on some brown noise and I'll meditate for 15 to 30 minutes. If I'm really in the groove at 30 minutes when my timer goes off, I'll turn it off and I'll meditate for 45 minutes to an hour. What a gift meditation has been. And I'm really glad that it's becoming more mainstream. It feels kind of along the lines of what has been changing with therapy, that it's not quite so like off limits anymore. It's like accessible to everybody. It's accessible to everybody. I have a playlist in YouTube that I've saved, a private playlist of some of my favorite guided meditations that I've done or that I do on a regular basis. Meditation has been a huge gift to me. I also have benefited from that in the times when I feel myself about to lose my shit, particularly with my kids. I have become much more mindful of the precursors to that happening. So for a long time in my life, I was very reactive, or I would do something and it was only in hindsight that I would be like, ugh, like I'm so annoyed that I couldn't see that coming and couldn't stop it ahead of time. Meditation has allowed me to notice how I'm feeling, getting to the point of losing it. And this is not just in the times when I want to get a hold of, my bad patterns of anger or frustration or overwhelm. This has also been incredibly valuable to me as I have dealt with grief. I've talked about Annie so much on social media and on this podcast, and I'll continue to talk about her forever. She was 3 when we got her diagnosis, and she was 14 when she died. Between the time that we got her diagnosis and that she died, these 5 habits were developed for me. And if you notice, I mean, I was pointing this out all along the way. So all 5 of these help me be more connected to myself, to my body, to the deep wisdom, to the deep knowing, to me. They have helped reestablish a holistic connection between my physical body, my emotional body, my mental body, and my spiritual body. It has remembered me. It has helped me remember. And when we went through the hardest 2 years, these last 2 years of her being sick and a whole load of lots of other heartache, my commitment to this whole body integration made all the difference. And then when she died, I have tremendous amount of gratitude that I developed those habits ahead of that event with her, because I was able to be so profoundly present, not only with her, but with myself. To be so connected to that experience and be so connected to how I was feeling in that experience that I didn't miss a thing. I didn't miss a thing. And the memories that I made, because I slowed down, because I didn't try and perpetuate the behavior that I had done for many years of scrambling out of the tough emotions as quickly as possible, I was able to really be in those moments with her. And the habits, the mindfulness only brings good things in the future. Only because we know that heartache and grief is coming to us all. And to have the gift of true presence is what helps us to not develop long-term negative consequences of not allowing ourselves to feel everything that we're feeling. I highly recommend looking into the work of Gabor Mate. He has done some tremendous work around childhood trauma. And what has really made some light bulbs go off for me is his research and his experience as not only as a physician, but as someone who headed up the palliative care unit in a hospital for a decade, and then also worked with addicts. Is he has shown time and time again that people who have a lot of these particularly autoimmune diseases pop up in adulthood, a lot of it can be tied back to unaddressed trauma. And this isn't to say that we cause these issues in our physical bodies. It's not to say that. It's not a question of whose fault is it or whose responsibility is it. But really, what has impacted me so much is this understanding that if I want to do everything that I can now to serve my future self, to help my future self potentially avoid some of these diseases and some of these chronic illnesses, not to say that this is going to make that happen, but increasing my chances of avoiding them, is to not continue to store trauma in my body. And the way that we do that is by being present, by being conscious of what's happening in us and around us, by getting help and support from our communities, close communities, far communities, and including in that support from professionals, and developing healthy habits now that address our needs holistically. I had this phrase pop into my head maybe a year or so ago of what if we stop doing things to our bodies? So if we stop putting ourselves on diets to make our bodies look a certain way, if we stopped exercising to get our bodies into shape or to get our bodies bikini ready or summer ready or whatever, instead of doing all those things to our bodies, what if we do things for our bodies? Because our bodies are a beautiful part of us. And I have long understood that motivation that comes from loathing, motivation that comes from feelings of not good enough, motivation that comes from feelings of not worthy, never give us positive results. They may look on the surface to be positive results, but believe me that the person who works out with self-loathing will have a different result than the person who works out from a place of worthiness and self-love. They may look, the same on the outside, but internally, no. So the sooner that we can develop habits and lifestyle choices that are in service of our minds and that come from a place of love for ourselves, the better off we're going to be. Okay, that's it for today. I love you all so very much, and I hope that these things are helpful. If you find yourself to be someone who is feeling stuck, I recommend just choosing one habit, just one habit to start doing. It doesn't have to be a big habit. It doesn't have to be something that you're committing to doing 1 or 2 hours a day. Or, saying, I'm going to cut out all alcohol from my life tomorrow. Or I'm going to cut out all processed foods or sugars or whatever. Or I'm going to work out every day for an hour. This is not what I'm talking about. Okay. What I'm talking about is choosing a habit that helps you care for yourself, and to do this consistently. Keep your commitment to yourself to do things that your future self will thank you for, and not just your future self in 3 months or 6 months, but your future self in a decade. What kind of person do you want to be in a decade? What things have you struggled with for a long time that you're tired of struggling with? What things have you been diligently ignoring that it's time to say enough? I am worth working through these things. I am worth giving them attention. I am worth giving myself attention. I am worth giving myself loving, compassionate attention. So I highly recommend finding things that don't take you out of your body, but that help you come home to yourself. Come home to yourself. And in that, you will develop greater self-love and compassion. And the beautiful thing about that is that in the pursuit of true love here for yourself, that is when the compassion and the empathy and the love radiates out. It radiates out. The joie de vivre, the love, the joy of life is most evident from the people who have true worthiness and love for themselves. I think we probably all know this scripture that says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And the way that I think about that verse is that you will love your neighbor as you love yourself. You will loathe your neighbor as you loathe yourself. You will judge your neighbor as you judge yourself. I think some of the people who are most judgmental must have so much internal judgment. The people who require other people to be perfectionists or to be perfect must have a high state of perfectionism directed at themselves. The people who are the most unkind in the way that they speak to others, I imagine, have the most unkind inner dialogue towards themselves. You are worth learning how to love yourself, truly. Okay, that really is it for now. Love you all. Bye.